So there is some kind of problem going on in Georgia. There is a Judge Christina Peterson. I first heard about her this weekend. She was arrested at a nightclub because she assaulted a police officer. So she claims she thought this officer was the person assaulting the woman and she was helping the woman in self-defense. Well, as it turns out, at the time of that late night partying, the Supreme Court of Georgia was reviewing a panel decision to remove her as judge. And so there was something really significant at the 18-minute mark. I don't remember what, but we're going to watch it together. So this is someone reading the Supreme Court's opinion, and the video is the body cam footage of when she was arrested. So what we're about to hear is going to sound so familiar to you.
In the marriage license application, not the birth certificate. Judge Peterson's untruthful testimony in this respect underscores her conscious wrongdoing in determining that the petitioner had defrauded the court before issuing the notice of the hearing on the petition. Because, as the hearing panel found, Judge Peterson purposely issued the notice without advising the petitioner that a criminal contempt charge on the allegation of fraud would be adjudicated at the hearing.
Okay. A criminal contempt charge. Where have we heard about that in Georgia? Oh, yes. So we're about to get into some very interesting details, and they're going to sound super familiar to you. If they don't sound familiar, y'all haven't been watching.
So that the petitioner would be unprepared to defend herself when Judge Peterson summarily found her guilty of criminal contempt.
Remember, Ashley Merchant came in to defend YSL Steel. And she said, you have to give him notice. We have to have a hearing. He has a right to a defense.
As we explained below, these actions of misconduct evinced a willful disregard for the basic requirements of due process. It is well established that criminal contempt—
Okay, she failed to give this woman notice of the criminal contempt. And they just said that is proof of an undue disregard of the right to notice. So if she failed to give one person notice, and we have Glanville, who for sure failed to give Steele notice, shouldn't the Supreme Court make a similar ruling with Glanville's behavior? I certainly think so. I would be shocked if they didn't.
contempt is a crime in the ordinary sense, and criminal penalties may not be imposed on someone who has not been afforded the protections that the Constitution requires of such criminal proceedings.
Boom. We know Glanville gave criminal to YSL Steel because he got the 20 days, which is the maximum penalty under the criminal contempt code. We know this because Ashley Merchant kindly explained it all to us. This sounds very familiar, and this is why I don't think we're going to have a trial August 13th. As long as the Georgia Supreme Court gets their hands on Steele's contempt, I think it's ending.
In this respect, although a judge may announce punishment summarily and without further notice or hearing when contumacious conduct occurs in the judge's
Remember the word contumacious? Remember I had to freaking look it up?
presence and threatens a court's immediate ability to conduct its proceedings, such as where a witness refuses to testify or a party disrupts the court. When the alleged contumacious acts are committed outside the judge's presence, due process requires that the alleged offender is entitled to more normal adversary procedures. Here, Judge Peterson's contempt—
Normal adversary procedures. You remember, he's been held in contempt, the judge signed the contempt order, and there were no normal adversarial proceedings.
order shows that her ruling was based on the petitioner's allegedly providing fraudulent information on her marriage license application. Conduct that necessarily happened outside Judge Peterson's presence, since the petitioner filled out the application and submitted it to the court more than 5 years before being ordered to appear for a hearing. And as discussed above, the hearing panel discredited Judge Peterson's testimony to the contrary. Even assuming for the sake of argument that the information the petitioner initially supplied the court was fraudulent, and also assuming that filing such information could warrant a sanction of criminal contempt, the petitioner's alleged conduct constituted indirect contempt at most, such that the petitioner was entitled to the due process protections generally afforded to other criminal defendants.
Okay, we've heard all of this language before. We have heard 100% of this language before. And it came from YSL Steele's lawyer's mouth. So if the Supreme Court of Georgia is asserting these statements, this is the rule of law, if they're saying this about her, they are going to apply these rules just to Glanville as well. Like, it's similar facts. It's not the same facts. Peterson seems to have lured someone in just to throw her into jail. Glanville just got mad about getting caught in a lie. But it's the rest, the proceeding, is same facts. So if this is what they're doing with Peterson, I would be, hell will freeze over. I will be shocked. I mean, seriously, shocked if they don't apply this to Glanville as it pertains to Steele's contempt.
Thus, before holding the petitioner in contempt, Judge Peterson was required to advise the petitioner of the contempt charges, provide her a reasonable opportunity to respond to them, and permit her the assistance of counsel and the right to call witnesses, among other processes and
Who said that? Ashley Merchant said that. That's on the record for Glanville when they were talking about how he'd already ordered Steele to contempt.
protections. As the hearing panel determined, however, Judge Peterson provided the petitioner none of these foundational due process protections before sentencing her to serve 20 days in jail.
Isn't that exactly the same thing that happened in Glanville's courtroom? None of the constitutional provisions were provided before throwing him to jail.
Even worse, the panel concluded that Judge Peterson decided that the petitioner had committed fraud on the court before she issued the notice of the hearing on the petition.
Okay. All right, that's where I'm going to end on that. I mean, absolutely cannot believe, well, I can't believe it, but it's completely the same facts. It's the same as YSL Steele's contempt. And I'm hearing it, I'm like, okay, so the Supreme Court of Georgia is applying the law to facts. So remember when all of the Steele things went on, we talked about this, and I said I was concerned that the appeals court was reviewing it, but then I saw that the appeals court had tossed it off to Steele, and that made me very happy. Or I'm sorry, they tossed it off to the Supreme Court, and that made me happy because usually the buck stops here with the Supreme Court. The bullshit is ended. We're done with bullshit, right? The Supreme Court is going to do what they're supposed to do. So hearing this Supreme Court opinion about this judge and her behavior, and hearing that this compel issue, this contempt issue came up with her, and the facts are so similar, I know that Steele's contempt will be overturned. And when it is, the Supreme Court is going to do something about Glanville. They'll probably call a mistrial, and I don't know, but they will do something about Glanville because they can't rightfully know that all of this has been broken and then just not do shit about it. So, pretty crazy. I mean, pretty crazy. It's like these people, these judges, it's just like Steele said, this is like communist Russia. You know, just 4 minutes ago, I was telling you, I had family who died to protect our Constitution, right? My relatives and, you know, my forefathers, we all know veterans. And these judges are just like, sorry, I flipped off the screen. They are just like, F you. When they disregard the Constitution so flagrantly, you are disregarding the sacrifice of all the people who have sacrificed to protect the Constitution. It is disgusting to me. Okay, calm down, Lauren. Calm down. Okay. I read this article once that abused children are like really hypersensitive to injustice, and I can definitely attest to that. I can confirm, okay? Injustice just makes me sick. But then again, I think about it and I'm like, I could have been born in Saudi Arabia and therefore not be allowed to drive, let alone have a law license. So at least I was born in a place that affords me the freedom to speak as I want and to practice law.